Hello everybody, this is Serpent Stinger, back again with another reaction video. This time we're reacting to a video from MMObyte. I played Blue Protocol, day 1 impressions. I think I also have his day 2 impressions and a dungeon or something loaded up. I'm interested in Blue Protocol pretty heavily. I like playing MMOs, but more importantly, I like playing anime-based games, and I love the art style of anime. So Blue Protocol is pretty up high on my list of games I'm interested in. So let's just get right into this. I'm very interested in what they have to say because I've been both skeptical and excited for the game.
Being roughly 10 hours of Blue Protocol's Japanese network test. And let me just preface this entire video by stating this game has not only lived up to my expectation of it, but it has also
That's good.
surpassed it. I
Oh,
played
okay.
the first beta test that this game had. Admittedly,
Okay.
that beta test had a lot of issues. The combat was kind of clunky, the animations were kind of clunky. There was a stamina system present for your mount where you could only use it for a number of seconds. The stamina would deplete, and then you couldn't use your mount anymore. There were so many
Jesus.
aspects of the game that needed
Ugh.
vastly improved. And after having spent 10 hours roughly in it today, I can say that a lot of the issues that I had that I saw were present during that first beta test are no longer there.
Okay.
Now, if you don't already, I do and will be streaming this over on Twitch in roughly about an hour or so from when this video goes live. And I am hoping to get to content that most people haven't gotten to, that most content creators haven't gotten to, that I personally haven't gotten to. After 10 hours, I pushed further than I did over the 3 days that I spent in it the first beta test. Now, Blue Protocol isn't your typical, your traditional MMO.
Okay.
Typically, MMOs are very linear, or then in cases of
Okay, before I see anything else here, we've got our skill bar. I think this is like the pet or monster ability bar. This is your left and right mouse button abilities. I'm guessing attack and charge or some shit like that. This is his Twitch screen, but this looks like it's some sort of quest. I'm guessing this is some sort of quest here. This is your consumables chat, possibly. Mini map, and I can't tell what would be behind his face. Okay. The UIs looks really clean, at least.
Black Desert, they're very open and freeing, but Blue Protocol, it provides a sense of being linear, but also at the same time gives you a level of freedom that you don't typically
You
possess.
do have a charge of some kind on this
A little
class.
bit. So, as an example here, the class system. Typically in MMOs, you have a class. That class is specific to your character. You learn your abilities. You, in rare instances, have a talent tree. In Blue Protocol, I decided to play mage. As a mage, I am limited to 4 different abilities. I have
Okay.
2 Imagine. The Imagine are creatures that you can equip that essentially function like additional abilities
Abilities, imagine. Okay.
or gear, since they provide you statistical benefits, and you capture them and you
Okay.
craft them and equip them in game. So I am limited to 4 abilities, 2 additional abilities that you can equip. You learn a set number of abilities, and then you have an entire talent tree. Now I opted to utilize the fire elemental tree. There are a number of different elemental affinities that the mage has. You can opt for fire, you can opt for ice, you can opt for lightning. Now, I didn't play a lightning build, I didn't play an ice build. I felt like the ice was inferior to fire in terms of damage and in terms of AoE potential. I
Okay.
prefer grouping hordes of enemies together and then AoEing them. That's just how I like to play my games. Now, fire
Fair.
allowed for me to do that. Fire gave me single target, gave me dot damage, and also gave me AoE pressure that I feel like the other elements just didn't. And I feel like being presented with the ability to play a class a certain way or a number of ways creates a degree of freedom that you don't typically find in MMOs. As an example,
Eh.
in Final Fantasy XIV, you play a black mage.
So the question is it choice or is it like illusion of choice? Because like there's a lot of games that give you like the ability to choose what kind of build you want to do, but everybody knows that you build one way because if you don't build that one way, then you're not going to get into dungeons or raids because your build doesn't function as well as somebody with the meta build. And if you're not running the meta build, then you can just get somebody that is who will go through the dungeons faster, and by doing the dungeon faster, you're getting the XP, you're getting the loot faster, which means you can run it again, or whatever it is that you're trying to do, you get it done faster, so it's less time used. Why would you pick somebody that's not using a meta build when you can use somebody that is using a meta build? So the question is the difference between the meta build and these other builds small enough where that doesn't matter? Because if it is a vast difference between the meta build and the non-meta build, then that's not really a choice. At that point, you're either not playing the meta build and you're inherently going to be not really hurting yourself, but kind of hurting yourself in the overall content of being able to play the game and enjoy the game, or you play the meta build and you get to get into these dungeons easy without as much issues. We'll see.
And every black mage is going to play the same way. You'll have the exact same rotation. You have the same buffs. In Blue Protocol, that's not the case. You can choose 4 abilities out of 20, out of 30. So you're very limited in what you can do. You're very limited in your utility. If you choose
All that's going to do,
focus on AoE, you're not going to be
yet again, all that's going to do is make people play the builds that perform the best in that situation.
able to single target. If you focus on single target, you're not going to be able to AoE. If you focus on a more of a control build, you're not going to be able to really deal much damage, but you're going to be able to CC enemies. You can focus on more of a support build and be of a larger support to your group, but not necessarily controlling enemies or dealing direct damage to them. So the game provides you these unique freedoms that a lot of other MMOs don't. And there are MMOs that do. I'm not saying there aren't MMOs
Obviously
that don't already do that. I'm saying typically of the MMOs that I have played, that is not a common recurring theme. Now,
no, it's
the game
not.
is definitely linear.
But the question is that not a recurring theme because people don't want to do it, or is it not a recurring theme because it's not a profitable or a theme that just doesn't work with the scope? Because playing single player games giving you a large chunk of build abilities isn't that big of an issue. Same thing with ARPGs. A lot of ARPGs live off of how many different builds can come through because of replayability. The thing with an MMO is most of the time you're not replaying it to play it in a different scope. You might play different classes, which is why you get some MMOs that allow you to play the same character but level different classes rather than having to make a new character. But you're most likely not going to play the same class again to try a different build when you can just play the meta. It's annoying to look at, but that's I don't know. I don't know how I feel about this. I just don't.
There is a linear path where you move from point A to point B to point C, back to point A to complete what you set out to complete. And this is a repetitious cycle, but that's typically what MMOs are. So you have a sense of linear progression.
I don't know why this occurred to me, but while he was talking, I came to the opinion that I want a game like this in this genre, not genre, this aesthetic, but like Rune Factory or Harvest Moon. I feel like it would be really cool to have a like fully 3D anime style farming game like those. And I mean, there were some for like Rune Factory and Harvest Moon, but I'm more meaning in this aesthetic.
And you also have that sense of freedom with regards to your class. But
that's a cool mount.
The world itself also has a level of freedom in so that there are quest objectives that you're forced to do to progress with the main story or to progress with the
Obviously.
side content in the game. Then there is the looting of all the shiny objects that are around, and there are a surplus of them, trust me. There are gems, there are plants, herbs, or there are various different categories, and the whole looting of all of the items is something you're going to be doing a lot of, trust me, because
Okay.
let me kind of veer off here into adventure rank, because I feel like this is integral to pretty much the rest of
Okay.
my thoughts on the game. Adventure rank in this game is essentially the gate with which you need to progress through if you want to continue making any kind of progress through the game. At level 6, I believe I hit a point where I could not take any more quests. This is because to progress any further, I needed to hit adventure rank level 2. Now, hitting adventure rank level 2 meant that I needed to unlock a number of different conditions. These conditions involve things like killing X amount of monsters, looting X amount of rocks out in the world, picking X amount of this specific flower, fishing for X amount of fish. These are things that you can do while exploring. These are things that you can.
So it's adventure rank in Genshin or any kind of Genshin-esque game. It's literally go around the map, do various quests, side quests, small mini games, and other things to get adventure rank XP and then upgrade your adventure rank. Okay.
Do while
They just
doing
made it
other
a lot
quests,
content.
while killing other monsters, while fighting monsters in dungeons. Like, these are things that you're going to need to fit into your everyday activities if you want to progress.
This fishing looks
And
good, by
this
the way.
is a 100% requirement. You cannot ignore your adventure rank, otherwise you won't learn new abilities, you won't unlock new story, you won't be capable of unlocking additional dungeons. You'll hit a wall, and this is a wall that cannot be overcome unless you, again, complete all of these prerequisite conditions. Admittedly, the adventure rank can be annoying. I did find it to be a little bit frustrating because this was a Japanese beta, and therefore I didn't understand much of what was going on, and I could only translate so much accurately. So I was often left just kind of running around hoping what I'm looting is what I needed to loot to unlock and further progress through all of the conditions that were necessary.
I'm glad he's not saying that it's just super negative though, because like he said, he is playing something that he is in a language that he can't like fully translate. So that does, I don't really know how I would feel about somebody being negative about that, because like it's your own fault for playing something that you can't read. So I can see it being the fact that it's being forced to, like, you're being forced to have to interact with it could be considered very frustrating though. Like, it's already sounds frustrating to me, even though I like doing all those types of things when I play games.
To unlock the adventure rank level 2. But backtracking a little bit, the game, linear, while also offering a degree of freedom. Now, as I played the original beta, I noted at the beginning that there were a lot of issues that needed fixed, that needed remedied, because it dragged the game down and really made it feel cheap. That is not the case with this beta test. This beta test had a lot of revamped features, a lot of revamped functions, mechanics, content, and made for a very enjoyable experience. There's a lot of depth to this game. There's more depth to this game than I feel is typically present in other MMOs. There's the option to play any class you want to on a single character, and I know
Good.
Eternal did this, Final Fantasy XIV did this, but it's not something typically MMOs allow for.
It seems like it's something that's becoming more popular though in the MMO genre.
So you can level all the classes on one single character. There's the Imagine system where you craft Imagine, which are creatures that you can equip, use in battle to provide you additional abilities. Like as a mage, I equipped one that could heal me and heal other players that weren't even in my party out in the field, which gave me additional survivability, additional utility in a group environment. You could also equip those purely for a statistical advantage because they give you an item level like advantage to enter dungeons. You are required to have a certain item level, and that can be boosted by equipping Imagine. So they function similarly to gear while also providing a skill. So they fill a multitude of different roles. And then there are combat Imagine that you can use. So again, they fill a lot of...
That's going to raise a lot of questions about, is it going to be better to run a Imagine with a higher item level? Is it going to be better to run an Imagine with a skill that's really good, even if it's a lower level? Interesting.
Roles. There are a lot
I don't know how I'm going to feel about that.
Life skills, fishing. There is a very large focus on crafting. Gear is only obtained through crafting. You need to go out, you need to farm items to craft your gear. And if you're not a crafter like I am, I hate crafting. It's going to be a bit of a nuisance to do, but at the same time, like you're not going to obtain gear necessarily from boss drops or world boss drops or dungeon boss drops. So I guess it is attempting to separate itself from that whole gear, the whole necessity behind farming repetitiously for gear and being disappointed.
I'm going to enjoy this because I very much am a crafter, but I can see where people would not enjoy this
when you don't obtain it.
And
because
actually, going further into that point, I'm not quite sure I agree with the idea of completely removing loot drops, like equipment-based loot drops, because that does take away from the whole point of, like, if there are people that enjoy the repetitious content to get loot drops, that kind of gets rid of the whole point. Like, I like the idea of having a intricate crafting system because I enjoy crafting, but that doesn't mean I want somebody else to lose the ability to farm against bosses and dungeons just because it helps me. And you know, I don't want somebody else to lose something just because I want to gain something. It just doesn't sit right.
There's nothing worse than trying to attempt to
Not
get
in
this
this
piece of gear
case.
from a very highly ranked competitive dungeon or raid, farming it for a month, 2 months, not getting the single piece you need, seeing everyone else get all the different gear that they wanted. The alternative here is that you enter these dungeons, you enter these raids, and you get materials. These materials are then used to craft gear that you wouldn't otherwise get, or that you're not going to get. So there's never a point where you're not receiving something beneficial for you or for your future gear.
That is a point that I would like to say is very good about this system. It's the same thing that I say about games with trading versus games that don't have trading when we were talking about like ARPGs. There is no reason to not have trading besides having to deal with the real world money bot systems that always pop up somewhere. And the reason I say this is because I enjoy playing PoE, Path of Exile. Yes, it has real money transaction issues, although they do their best to keep it keep control of it, and they do a pretty good job of it. The problem with not having trading is if you get a piece of loot that doesn't work for you, you can't do anything with it. You go through an entire dungeon, map, raid, whatever it is, and you get something that is completely useless to you. If you don't have trading, congratulations, you got screwed, and now you have to go run the thing again. And sometimes you can't run it again. Sometimes it's like once a day, once a week, once a month. That's not fun. That's just stupid. But when you have trading, suddenly this item that you have that you have no use for can then be traded to make in-game money, or sometimes even being traded for other in-game items, thus allowing you to naturally progress in the game in power. Let's say you're a mage and you get a cool, like one of the rare drops for like one-handed swords for warriors. It's like, I can't use this, but I can trade this to a warrior who then can give me a crap ton of gold so that I can go buy the staff I wanted. There you go. Trading is such a good thing in those types of games. So the idea that you can do dungeons and you're not getting equipment rewards from doing the dungeons, and instead you're getting the crafting materials to make the items. So long as the drop rates and everything for those crafting items aren't absurd, should fundamentally play better than having to rely on the luck of getting a gear piece that you want. Because if you're playing like a mage, you could constantly roll into only getting swords, and then you're screwed. Whereas in this case, so long as all the in-game loot requires a particular set of crafting materials, you can just make what you want when you get it. There's no bad roll on the crafting materials, but we'll see.
Thus, there's always a purpose behind what you're running, and you never feel disappointed necessarily in what you get. You know, you only need like one item left, and for whatever reason you're not obtaining it. But I feel like that should be a rare case given the amount of material, the amount of resources you get during and even after completing each dungeon. The world itself, absolutely beautiful. Graphically,
that's what it looks like.
For an anime game, I think Blue Protocol is the most stunning anime MMO I have ever seen. Is one of the better looking anime games in general. I know there are going to be Genshin players in here that are like, oh, but Genshin looks better. I don't think so. I actually think Blue Protocol, graphically for its regions, is equivalent to Genshin Impact, if not even better. I think the character...
I'm going to disagree with this for now. I am a big Genshin Impact player. I've thoroughly enjoyed the game. From the clips I've seen of Blue Protocol, it does not look like it's better to me, but I have not physically played the game, nor have I seen every area. I have mostly just seen areas like this, the forests. And in my opinion, forests aren't the best way to judge graphics, because there's only so much you can do. Usually when I want to look at graphics, I look for a scenery that's a little bit more extravagant or exotic. When I want to say, at least in anime games, that this game has better graphics than the others, because how you handle extremely exotic environments can really make or break graphics, at least in my opinion. So until I get my hands on this, or I see some sort of video that shows all the different locations, I can't really say for a solid fact. But with what I've seen, I'm going to disagree with this. But there's no issue with somebody saying that the other way, because art is subjective. It really just is subjective.
Models, the fluidity in the character animations are drastically superior to Genshin Impact. Drastically superior to any gacha game out there. You can see this during cutscenes with how characters move, individual parts of their bodies.
I'm curious to know how much this guy has played of Genshin Impact. Genshin Impact has some pretty fluid character designs and movements in cutscenes and otherwise. Especially in the more recent updates like Inazuma, Sumeru, but yet again, I haven't really seen much of Blue Protocol, so I don't really know. I mean, just watching the character run around, it doesn't really seem like that. The enemies definitely look like they have more fluidity than Genshin Impact's enemies, but the actual character model doesn't look like it has that much more fluidity, but we'll see.
Their fingers, their facial expressions, just how they move left to right and forwards and backwards and interacting with the environment, the seats, the counters, everything is just so high quality. But then this is Bandai Namco. They're the people that did Code Vein. They are the people that published Elden Ring. They have developed a ton of Tales of games, so they have a very long history with successful games. The combat is drastically superior to what I had played back during the previous beta test. The first beta was very clunky. This was so smooth. Everything just... It moved in unison. Running around, attacking, transitioning from attacking to your mount, transitioning from your mount to your attacks. Aerial combat, grounded combat, combat where you're jumping off a cliff and shooting enemies as you fall. The combat was phenomenal.
That sounds good.
Granted, the abilities were, admittedly, for the first few hours, very plain, very ordinary, not very impactful. But that makes sense. We were only, I think, level 4 or 5 for the first 4 hours of the.
I mean, let's be honest. Oh, I heard what he was about to say. I'm going to rewind for a second to catch all that, but you're never going to get impactful gameplay or anything like this in the beginning of the game when you're at like level 1 or 2 or whatever, because you don't have everything that you need to make the game impactful. Usually, combat in MMOs or games with like a big emphasis on levels for abilities, until you get to like just before to around like the middle levels, you're not really playing the combat experience at its full ability. This goes even for turn-based games when you don't have a full party and you only have like, if it's a four-party system and you only have two members, you're not having the full experience of the turn-based game until you have four members of your party. It's just fundamentally going to be less impactful and less rewarding until you reach the point where you have all of your basics unlocked. But 4 hours to only be level 4 sounds pretty crazy.
Admittedly, for the first few hours, very plain, very ordinary, not very impactful. But that makes sense. We were only, I think, level 4 or 5 for the first 4 hours of the stream.
Ugh.
We are also limited to a max level of 20, I believe, for this test phase. So we're not going to be able to see what abilities we get at level 30 or 40, whatever they end up making the cap ultimately end up. But the combat was absolutely phenomenal. It blew my expectations out of the water, having played it originally. I feel like for the first 10 hours of playing an MMO, and I played this in Japanese, so I spent a solid like, hour and a half trying to translate everything on screen. But my first 10 hours spent in Blue Protocol, this new version of it, this finalized version of it, were better than I thought they were going to be. My impressions were so far above. I did not anticipate to have as much fun as I did. Now, I'm not saying it will continue to be as fun. I'm not saying it won't grow to be even more fun as I continue to unlock new features. Like additional dungeons, like the raids I did. The dungeons of which were actually a lot of fun. There were interesting mechanics in the dungeons that I could utilize.
I've heard that.
To deal additional damage to monsters, additional damage to bosses. But I don't want to delve too deeply into this on day one, because my opinion of certain features and certain aspects of the game are likely going to change as I progress through it on day 2 and spend 20 hours in the game. They're likely going to change as I progress through on day 3 and cover 30 hours of the game. So my opinion thus far, after 10 hours of network test, beta test on day 1, is that if the game launches in this state, it is going to be a monumental success. It is going to cater to anime fans 100%, but beyond that, this game feels so smooth, feels so high quality. I can't wait for all of you to get to test this out, because this again exceeded my expectation. And if Amazon don't ruin it, and they have the potential to, but they also have the potential not to, and if the monetization isn't ruined from Bandai Namco, if they don't make this pay to win or heavily pay to advance or heavily catering to whales, then I think this might be potentially one of the biggest releases of the year, and the only anime MMO that is left that is relevant and that is of any kind of success in the genre. Hopefully you guys.
Those are fair. Like always, make sure you all like and subscribe to his channel. MMOBite is amazing. I love reacting to his content. And we'll be reacting to more of his content very soon because I have more of Blue Protocol videos of his to watch. But when it comes to not catering to whales, I hate to say it, but I'm a big gacha player. I play a lot of gacha games and anime games and a whole bunch of other things. The fact of the matter is, they're always going to cater to the whales. The problem is, the question is, in what fashion are they catering to the whales? Are we dealing with a lost ark, or are we dealing with a like more on the end of like Warframe, or what's another one that I can think of? I guess Genshin, but that's not really the same. But basically, are you dealing with a more fair monetization style, or are you dealing with a super pay to win, like overtly disgusting model? Either way, we're probably dealing with a pay to win model. That's just most likely going to be the fact. I could be wrong, and I'll gladly be wrong. I would prefer to be wrong, but we are probably realistically going to be dealing with a pay to win model. But outside of that, I hope you all enjoyed. This is Serpent Stinger signing out. Peace.